It takes all kinds. Are you familiar with that phrase? Kind of like different strokes for different folks. Some say tomato, some say tomato. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to evangelism. There are 1,000 different methods or approaches out there. When we were just married, Marcy and I lived on Cedar Street in a little 2-bedroom home. Um, and often around 9 or 10 p.m., there'd be a knock at the door, and I'd open the door, and invariably it would be our good friend Doug. Now, Doug was a Californian Jesus people type of guy, former hippie, got saved in the Jesus people movement, very cool dude. And he was probably 10 or 12 years older than us, and he really took great concern in our development as believers and what was important. Now, I'd open the door. I couldn't always tell it was Doug in the shadows, but he had a familiar hat, kind of like a cowboy hat, but it was more like an Indiana Jones hat, except Indiana Jones didn't exist at that time. And that was Doug's, hey, bro, let's go out on the street and do some witnessing hat. So I would look at Marcy. She would give me the nod or the wave, like, go, and away we'd go. Now, sometimes there were some pretty amazing encounters and conversations and with other kind of nocturnal creatures, those who came out only at night. We'd end up striking conversations up with people, and I'd mostly just let Doug do the talking, I'd do the learning, and I'd do the praying if I was remembering. And sometimes though it seemed like nothing happened, I realized afterwards that something always happened. Like using the wrong grammar, it'd be like saying nothing never happens, because there was always something happening inside me or inside us. And so we were out there and making ourselves available, and Jesus was always at work, whether it was in us or in somebody else through us. And so a lot of it just is, it's about being intentional, being open, and being ready. D.L. Moody used to make it his practice that when he was on a bus or streetcar, he would just talk to people. And one time in Detroit, he just straight up asked a man, hey, are you a Christian? And the man replied that, no, sir, I am not, but I wish I were. Well, D.L. Moody led him right then and there, led him to the Lord. A good friend of ours, now gone on to glory, Ray Inkster, he would go out of his way to hire street people to do yard work around his house or paint or something. And it would either be like homeless people or people that were just kind of down on their fortunes, and they were, needed help. And so he would give them a hand up by hiring them for a day or two, or sometimes even longer. Some guys were really good workers and just needed a step up. And so, he would pay them well, and he'd feed them lunch. Well, actually, it was probably his wife Thelma who would take care of feeding them lunch. And he was always very intentional to make them feel like a human being, for one thing, but also that God really loved them. And he would take every opportunity and make the most of it to share Christ with them. And he told me that for 36 years, all he did as a Christian was sit on a pew on a Sunday morning. 35 years, did nothing. And then he was introduced, and Thelma was introduced to Alpha, that evangelistic program coming out of the UK, out of Holy Trinity Brompton, and it just revitalized their life. And they saw people getting saved, prostitutes and people who just were coming to faith. And so every Monday night, though they were in their 70s, they were consistently faithful in going down to the streets of Warnock and Whalley, and just would minister to street people, prostitutes, drug addicts. They would literally clothe people out of the back of their trunk. And they did that as long as they could do that. They would have Bible studies in their home. They even got into deliverance ministry for a while. They were just very inspirational because for them it would be like, hey, whatever, whenever, Jesus, I'm willing, I'm here to serve. That was their heart, and they were such a blessing to me, and almost still is to Marcy and myself. And they're very, very inspirational. I recall another story of a man just alive with Christ on an airplane, and he just was wanting to share the gospel with somebody, and in walks this dude who is like got a mohawk that's multicolored and wearing all black, like a goth type of, body piercings all over his face and tattoos, etc. And he thought, what could I say to this guy? What could I say to this guy? I can't remember if the guy sat next to him or if he went out of his way to go find him. But what he said to him was this. He said, hey, you know what? If you're trying to make a statement against our society, you gotta be bolder. You gotta be bigger. And the guy got his attention because, like, what? I can't do anything more than what I'm doing. And he told him about how Jesus was a rebel, the ultimate rebel with a cause. And he ended up leading him to the Lord. The guy got it. He wanted to be part of something bigger that really made a statement. And like, praise God for people like that who are intentional and they wasn't afraid of that guy like everybody else. So another story, a young evangelist named Brent who spoke here when I was a youth pastor. He spoke at 100 Mile locally here, and he told a story about when he was in the UK, when he was in England, and he was doing some preaching over there, and the local pastor said, mate, it's 3 p.m. Just about 3. Let's go. He didn't know where he was going. He thought, okay, well, I'm just a guest, you're the host. So jumped in the vehicle with him. They went down and parked outside of a high school down there, right at the front gates of the high school. And the bell rang, 3 p.m. exactly, or whatever time it was. But anyway, they hundreds of students, high school students, just poured out. And what the local pastor did is that he jumped up onto like a brick or a stone wall and began to sing at the top of his lungs. Jesus is the answer for the world today. Above him there's no other. Jesus is the way. Now, Brent was like stunned for a moment, and because the pastor had said, follow my lead, he just thought, okay. So he jumped up there with him and sang it out with him again. Jesus is the answer. Now, what happened was, he said right in the middle of it, he saw it coming toward him, and it was spit. Somebody spat on him. And then that began to just rain down on all these kids, just being ignorant and spitting on them, and till the novelty wore off and they were cursing him and stuff like that. And then a lot of them left, and except for 3 or 4 guys. And one of those guys asked them, what are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? And the pastor said, hey, if Jesus could die on the cross for you, I can take a little spit. Now, if I recall right, that one guy gave his life to the Lord. But who knows how many people that guy led to the Lord? That's bold. And that's just making the most of the opportunity that was presented before them. So I'm not sure that method would work today. But I'm not sure that that method would not work. As we've been saying all along, let's be ready. Let's be intentional. Let's be bold. For the Lord our God is with us, and he wants to save the world. He is not willing that any perish, but that all come to salvation. So let's do our part and share the good news, the gospel of Jesus.